Okay, this leads us to talking about Streptococcus and related genera. These are gram-positive. Of course, they're coccus shaped, so they're spherical or ovoid. They can be in long chains, sometimes in pairs. They are non-motile. They can have capsules and slime layers, and they are facultative anaerobes. They do not form catalase. Um, Most of your parasitic forms are pretty fastidious. The colonies are small and non-pigmented, and they are very sensitive to drying, heat, and disinfectants. And this is what it looks like. You see the long chains of the Streptococcus. Strepto means long chains. Coccus is the spherical shape. Now, we have all these different Streptococcus strains. We got strep pyogenes, and then of course there's strep pneumoniae, the Enterococcus faecalis, all of those. And they can be classified based on their cell wall or on the hemolysis or hemolysis. This is showing all of the species and where they live and the problems they can cause over here in humans. Strep pyogenes is in your throat, so of course it's going to cause skin, throat infections, and scarlet fever. This Agalactiae is in the human vagina and the cow udder, and so it's going to affect neonates and it's going to get wound infections. Enterococcus faecalis is in intestines. It can cause UTIs or endocarditis. The strep sanguinis is in your mouth and can cause endocarditis. Strep mutans also in the mouth and can cause cavities and dental caries in your teeth. And strep pneumoniae, of course, can cause bacterial pneumonia because it lives in your respiratory tract. Now, the most serious streptococcal pathogen is the Streptococcus pyogenes. It is a parasite, and it's found in the throat, the nasopharynx, and sometimes the skin. As far as virulence factors, there are some surface antigens. It has C carbohydrates that protect against lysozyme. The fimbriae help it adhere to surfaces. M protein makes it be more resistant to phagocytosis. The hyaluronic acid capsule keeps it from provoking an immune response, and the C5a protease hinders complement and neutrophil response. So there's a lot of virulence factors to be considered when you're looking at strep pyogenes. Now, the major extracellular toxins are the streptolysins, and these are going to cause hemolysis, and they can both cause cell and tissue injury. The streptolysin O and streptolysin S. The erythrogenic toxin is pyrogenic, meaning it's going to cause a fever and a red rash. And then there's the superantigens that stimulate monocytes and lymphocytes and cause the release of tissue necrotic factor. The extracellular enzymes, you've got streptokinase to digest fibrin clots, hyaluronidase to break down connective tissue, and DNase that hydrolyzes DNA. Humans are the only reservoirs of the strep pyogenes, and transmission is contact, droplets, food, and fomites. Usually their portal of entry is the skin or the pharynx. Children are most often affected with cutaneous and throat infections. And the systemic infections can cause the sequelae, where you have a more chronic condition after the initial infection if it's not treated correctly and quickly. Impetigo is one of the skin infections, and it most often affects children and babies, and these places break out and they get a crusty scab on them, and they're usually around the mouth and the nose and on the extremities. It is associated with poor hygiene or living in crowded conditions or having a lot of insect bites because it itches, and they scratch them with their fingernails and break them open, and then the strep is opportunistic. Streptococcal pharyngitis, of course, causes strep throat. Scarlet fever is a systemic infection because the strep pyogen has a prophage that codes for the erythrogenic toxin, and that can lead to the sequelae. Septicemia, pneumonia is another systemic infection, and of course streptococcal toxic shock syndrome. Some long-term complications of the group A infections, rheumatic fever. This usually is after children have had pharyngitis, and they may get carditis and have valve damage in their hearts. They can have arthritis or run fevers. Acute glomerulonephritis will cause increased blood pressure, nephritis in your kidneys, sometimes heart failure, and kidney failure can be a serious complication of this. Which of the following is not a possible complication of strep throat? Pneumonia.